Well, I'm joined now by Julia Lo Bue-Said, Chief Executive of Advantage Travel Partnership, the UK's largest network of independent travel agents covering leisure and business travel. Julia, thank you for coming on the programme.
Thank you for having me, Nick.
Right, this has been an incredibly frustrating time for passengers, I think it's fair to say. How frustrating a time has the last few weeks been for you and your members, though?
It's been, I think first of all, our concern is always about the customers and the passengers that are involved and unfortunately affected negatively. And that's devastating. And none of us want to see that. We've been shut down for 2 years. And the last thing we want to see is passengers having to have flights being disrupted. From a business point of view, for my members, it's exceptionally challenging. The one thing that a travel agent is really trying to do now, and their absolute focus is on making sure that any customers that are affected, they are able to rebook and make sure that they can get to where they need to get to on alternative flights. And that's a really important part that unfortunately, I have listened to the committee meeting today, that doesn't come through. But it's a really important fact that if you're booking through a travel agent, they will absolutely be committed and determined to get you where you need to be on alternative flights.
You know, we've heard a lot about cancellations over the last few weeks, and people turning up at airports and chaos happening because of queues, people getting on planes, then being told to get off the plane. I'm sure that airlines and companies know that these bookings are coming. I know there's a staff shortage and all of that, but surely it can be resolved before people turn up at the airport.
Yeah, in the vast majority of cases, Nick, and this is no consolation for anyone that had their flight disrupted at the very last minute, particularly if you're on the runway right at the airport. The vast majority of flights are cancelled in advance. And the airlines, British Airways, we heard from today, and EasyJet and TUI, particularly over the half-term holidays, they were cancelling holidays in the run-up to the busy half-term period. And they're doing that right throughout the summer programme. And that's really to help build resilience, to try and manage some of the issues that we are seeing, whether it's labour shortages, security clearance passes, etc. So the unfortunate scenarios are when they are happening last minute. They are far and few between. And as I said, the last thing anybody wants is for those cancellations to take place.
There's shortages in key areas as well, aren't there? Security and baggage handling.
There are. It's the whole ecosystem, and if I'm sure you've been on a flight somewhere and you've travelled, and for those of us who have, you'll know that actually the whole ecosystem is dependent on so many moving parts, from traffic control to baggage handlers to crew, pilots, and it doesn't take a lot when you're in a very tight labour market. It doesn't take a lot for some of those component parts to have a real knock-on impact to the flights and the passenger journey. So it's really about trying to make sure we can build some resilience in the process. And I know a lot of the airlines and the airports are trying to do that right now, so they can make sure they can provide the customers the travel experience that they desperately want.
It's interesting because when the pandemic first started and travel was essentially all but closed down, people were encouraged to retrain in different things. And I was listening to 5 Live a couple of weeks ago when all this was kicking off and lots of people's flights were being cancelled. And there was a cabin crew member who came on, and she didn't want to go by her real name, but she essentially said that she'd retrained and done something else, and she doesn't want to go back into the travel industry now because it's hard work, it's long hours, it's difficult. So is it an industry you think that a lot of people that were in it before and now they've retrained don't want to go back to?
There's a number of facts, and I think that your caller there, is that's probably symptomatic for a lot of scenarios where you are working, particularly if you're working in the airport. Obviously, the travel industry, is bigger than the airport, but if you're working at the airport and it's on sociable hours, if you've experienced a time where you can, get the same reward, same pay, maybe better pay, better work-life balance, and you've experienced that for a while. Actually, do you want to go back to the industry if this new life suits your lifestyle better? So I think I think as an overall industry, these are some of the challenges that I guess the whole entire labour market is struggling with, and we have to work through. So that is a real deciding factor. I think also there are many impacts. Brexit is one. We've lost a lot of European workers to different industries, but also that have gone back home, and unfortunately we just lost that pool of talent, if you like. So I think the industry has to start thinking about, where does this pool of talent come from? How do we either retrain people back in? How do we ensure that we can provide maybe a different lifestyle? I mean, Sophie from EasyJet was at the Select Committee today, and I heard her talking about pilots that were all of a sudden wanting to work part time. And actually, how does the company ensure that they can help provide that type of work-life balance that people want, if that's what they want? So I guess coming out of this, as we're building resilience, we also need to think about, where is this pool of talent going to come from? But actually, how do we shape the image and profile of the sector so it becomes a really attractive sector again that people really want to work for?
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see. The thoughts there of Julia Lo Bue-Said, Chief Executive of Advantage Travel Partnership, the UK's largest network of independent travel agents.